All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show. No B-Dub, no Brandon today, but he'll be back tomorrow, which is sweet. On this show, we go game by game. We talk through guys I like, guys who are potential leverage plays. On the pre-lock show, Brandon and I will talk through leverage plays, core plays, and really just our overall strategy for that slate. That's really the execution. So let's go ahead and jump into the game plan. Well, first, let's look at last night's slate. Let's see what went well, what might not have went well. But first things first, I have to give my guy Brandon B-Dub, who you guys see on this show, an awesome shout out. He crushed it last night. You see, primarily his single entry lines were the things that helped him make a crap ton of money. You see, he put 425 in. He made well over 3,500. And you see the single entry lines. You see his lineup. Again, I always say Brandon's really good at lineup construction. And that's why I always trust him with the single entry questions because he's just so good at it. And yeah, just wanted to give him a shout out because he had a great night. There were other DFS Army members who did well. Couldn't screenshot all of them, but I wanted to make sure I gave Brandon a good shout out. For me personally, wasn't my best day. I missed the Cornet news. I was out and about. But that happens sometimes. That's the risk you take when you aren't paying attention in NBA DFS. But I think most people did pretty well. This was the $100,000 winning lineup. Peyton Pritchard made it. We were on Peyton. And that wasn't a surprise for us. Gary Trent Jr. made the winning lineup. Once he moved into the starting lineup and we saw that news come through, he became a much better play. RJ Barrett, we prioritized him last night. We made sure we had him in lines. Okongwu is a little bit of a surprise, but he really just did enough at 4,600 to get in there. He didn't have a crazy good game or anything like that. Luke Cornett, once we got the news that he was starting, he became a much better play. In the DFS Army Discord, Brandon B-Dubs was telling everyone to do that. Uppers was too. Quite a few people were talking about getting on Cornett and getting off of Sam. So glad that went well for everyone. D'Lo, I did lower my exposure to him last night, but still had some leverage. He made the nuts line. He crushed in a spot that I wasn't overly excited about, but he did well. Pre-lock show yesterday, we were all on Anthony Davis. I said Anthony Davis was the best play on the slate, in my opinion. We had good leverage there. Luka Doncic, we also had leverage on. So just a pretty solid slate across the board. Hit on a lot. Missed a bit. The Milwaukee Bucks really burned me. I was over on them, and they didn't come through in that blowout. But overall, again, congrats to people who did well. Let's look at today. Dixon, yeah, we're live. We're early too. I didn't feel like waiting. Happens some days. Zolo, what's up, man? Hope you're doing all right. Let's look at this Chicago Bulls game going up against Toronto. For the Bulls, quite a few questionable tags that will matter for me. Patrick Williams is questionable. Ayo is questionable. Andre Drummond is probable. Dalen Terry is probable. For me, Vucevic is a priority here. I like Vucevic a lot. Even if we don't get any injury news or anything like that, Vucevic is the priority here. Has a really soft matchup against the Raptors. Jakob Poeltl is still out, so it's just a very soft matchup for him, and he's someone that I plan on being significantly over the field on tonight. Outside of that, I mean, we know DeMar and Levine have upside. They're priced well, so they're definitely viable. Ideally, they just show up a bit for me naturally. I'm just not trying to force them in at this point, especially just given their ownership. It just feels like a decent matchup on a short slate, but nothing that I'm trying to go crazy on. Patrick Williams at 3,700. If he plays, he's a very viable, cheap value option on this slate. Of course, if he doesn't play, that gets more complicated. If Ayo and Patrick Williams are out, I would expect guys like Dalen Terry to see a bit more run. Carter potentially. Drummond typically sees a few more minutes in the situations where Patrick Williams doesn't play. So again, the only guy I'm prioritizing and I'm forcing exposure to is Nikola Vucevic, but the Bulls have quite a few decent, viable options on this slate. Zolo said Dame was chucking, but nothing fell. Yeah, It was painful. It was painful. Zola, I appreciate this. Yeah, DeRozan, this is a revenge game for him, going up against the Raptors again. So it will be interesting to see how he does there. Definitely a little bit of a narrative there. Love Patrick Williams tonight. Yeah, if he plays, we need him to play. Jay said, will B-Dubs be on tonight for the pre-lock show? He will. He will be on tonight, and he'll be on this show tomorrow and the pre-lock show tomorrow. He had off this week, so he was able to join a lot more, which I always appreciate. But next week, probably be a bit more hit or miss. So yeah, that's the Bulls for us. When we look at the Raptors for injury news, we already talked about it. Jakob Poeltl is out. Otto Porter Jr.'s TBD. Lewis is TBD. Jordan Nwora is TBD. And Bruce Brown is listed as TBD. Those are a few pieces from some of the recent trades that have happened. Siakam is now gone. That's probably the biggest thing here. I am really hoping Bruce Brown does not play tonight, because if Bruce Brown plays, that really lowers my interest level in the Raptors in general, just because we don't know what the rotation will look like. We don't know what the usage rate will look like. And this team just feels a little weird with Bruce Brown on it, in my opinion. Maybe it'll look a little bit better with Jakob Poeltl when he joins back, but it just feels, it's hard. I don't know who's really going to benefit the most with this trade once Bruce Brown joins the group. But hopefully he's out. And if that's the case, I'm prioritizing the Raptors once again. Scotty Barnes disappointed a little bit last night. He was someone I was on a good bit. I'm willing to go right back to him tonight. Emmanuel Quickly, we were on him yesterday, back-to-back, but I'm still willing to go right back to him. RJ Barrett, still at 6,600, still plenty of upside. This game has a nice total of 227, which is something that we don't see very often from the Bulls because they do play at a pretty slow pace. But because of their price tag, I'm happy to just keep things. I'm happy to have exposure to these guys tonight. It looks like they will be pretty chalky, so that's disappointing, but it is what it is. Gary Trent Jr., if he starts again, he's viable at this price tag. And then Thad Young at 3,900, I'm comfortable having him in my mix. Porter is he's just too expensive for me at this point. And then Schroeder is still just not showing a ton of upside. I'm not Xing him out or anything, but I'm not overly excited about him. Yeah, agreed. Zolo said, is Gary Trent Jr.'s birthday today? He should show out, and they should let him start, hopefully. That'll be awesome. I love Gary Trent Jr. He's one of those guys, I feel like I say it all the time, but he's helped me have at least one of the 100K wins I've had, he's been a part of, maybe more. So I'm always a little bit biased towards some of these Raptor guys, but I still think it's a great spot. But if he doesn't start, I'm not going to prioritize him. Zola said Bruce Brown most likely will get traded soon. Yeah, I agree. For his sake, I hope so. Also for our sake, for DFS purposes, that would be awesome. Thomas said, what's up? What's up, man? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Let's see. Yep, Thad Young revenge game too. And the price tag's nice. So we just need things to stay the same with the Raptors, and we can play them. Don't need anyone else playing or being added to the team, because that complicates things a good bit. Next up, we have the Wizards going up against the Knicks. For me, when it comes to the Wizards, Daniel Gafford is out. And so, perfect timing. They traded for Bagley and Livers. Bagley was apparently wearing a starter's jersey today during practice, or perhaps that was yesterday. I don't know exactly when that news came out, but it's looking like it's going to be a Bagley chalk slate, guys. I know it's not our favorite thing. It's not my favorite thing either, especially when he's going up against a decent front court right now in the Knicks. They've been playing pretty well defensively over the last few weeks. So I don't love it, but I have to play it just because he's so cheap. He should start, and as long as he's starting, I'm willing to do it. If he ends up not starting and they decide to play someone else here, which I'm not expecting, then he'll definitely fall for me. But as of right now, Marvin Bagley will be a core play. Outside of that, I mean, we know there's upside with guys like Kuzma and Poole and Avdia, but this isn't a spot where I'm trying to force exposure to the Wizards tonight. I only like playing them in really soft matchups, and this isn't one of those, in my opinion. The spread is pretty wide here for the Knicks. supposed to win by around 12 points, if not more. They should cover that spread, in my opinion. Wizards are just really bad. I don't think that's a shock to anyone. The Knicks are basically healthy. Mitchell Robinson is out. But I think this is a great spot for Randall and Brunson and Isaiah. Even OG, I think, is priced appropriately at 6K, where he still has a little bit of upside left on that price tag. The hard part for me about OG is just that he's been playing so much, especially the last 2 games. He's been playing 40 plus minutes. Last night he played 40 plus minutes. It wouldn't shock me if, hopefully, maybe not hopefully, but he just might not see as much run just because they've been running him into the ground. Let's see here. But yeah, I'm prioritizing Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. They've been really good over the last few weeks ever since that trade, but also just on top of that, it's a really soft matchup going up against the Wizards. My concern is ownership, but it's a 5-game slate, so I care a little bit less about ownership here. I want to at least match the field if I can. If I can. We'll see. Yeah, Bilal is a sneaky play. Yeah, I think you can take shots. It's a pretty high total game, so it's all good. But I mean, I'm personally not playing him, but he definitely is sneaky. Daniel said, "Yo, Josiah, would you ever play Brandon in real life basketball?" No, I would not. No, Brandon would whoop my ass in basketball. Uh, that's just not gonna happen. Maybe someone else. I don't think there's anyone who works at DFS Army who could probably beat Brandon in basketball. Maybe I'll watch him face one of you all and place a bet, but that's about it. Yeah, Bam was a letdown for sure last night, which was disappointing. Yeah, Bagley Chalk never feels great, but he's on a new team. Knew him, maybe. We'll see. Dixon said Josiah was teammates with Stephen A. Smith at Winston-Salem State. If only. That would be kind of funny, actually. BMAC, Brunson and Randall smash spot. Agreed, man. Agreed. Yeah, you just got to play Thad at this point. Yeah, you just got to play Thad, especially at this price tag. Unless there's some scenarios, if some of those guys from the Raptors end up playing tonight, I'll be a little bit less excited about it, but that's one of those guys I plan on just playing today. Oh, who's backing up Bagley? What a question. I mean, I think it's Gil. They don't have a lot of options at center. That's why we're playing Bagley, is because Gafford's out. They just don't have a lot of other viable options here. So I would assume it's Gil, but to be honest with you, I'm not 100% certain. I mean, we have seen them play Kuzma at the 5 before too, so they're just a bad team, man. I wouldn't go out of my way trying to find backups there. Hey, at least he. Oh man, I don't. Yeah, that Stephen A. drama was a little weird, but I'm not gonna question it. Yeah, BMAC. I wouldn't be shocked either. But anyway, I like the Knicks. They're just in a great matchup. I am concerned about the blowout potential, but the starters are very viable. And then Josh Hart is a viable value play, but again, he's not someone I'm jumping up and down to play. If he shows up for me naturally, that's fine. If I get too much of him, I will limit how much of him I get just because he isn't the most consistent player in the world. But I'm okay being over the field. Next up, we have the Thunder against the Jazz. One of 2 very high totals on this slate, 244 and a close spread at 3.5. I mean, I think everyone knows to play SGA at this point. It was fun last year and early this season when we could play him at low ownership, but that's not the case anymore. Great matchup against the Jazz. Good game environment. I'm playing SGA. Chet will once again be a leverage play for me in this spot. The Jazz have sucked defensively, especially when it comes to their front court. So I'll be significantly over the field on Chet. He's one of my favorite plays today. And then Jalen Williams is also very viable in this spot as well at 7,200 in a good matchup. Someone that I hope shows up naturally. He's expensive at 7,200, but he's still viable. I want him to show up a little bit for me today. Lou Dort and Josh Giddey are, of course, your dart throws. Giddey, I would prefer over Dort just because his upside and his ceiling is a little bit higher. Ricardo, you are probably right. I didn't. Um, hmm. I'm not. Uh, I'm not seeing Hart as questionable, Ricardo, but if you are, for me, he's not showing up as questionable. But I could be missing something. That news is recent. All right. So yeah, again, my priority here as just a sneaky low on play is Chet. Next up, we have the Utah Jazz going up against the Thunder. The Jazz, like I say this pretty often, they have a lot of bodies that they utilize. So rotations, no one's seeing extended run where I get super excited to play anyone here outside of my guy Lauri Markkanen. The Thunder have been pretty good defensively, but this is still a good spot for him. Jalen Williams has struggled against forwards like Lauri Markkanen, and I'm going to go heavy here. 14% ownership isn't low, but I plan on being at least 30, 40, if not 50% ownership on Lauri Markkanen. Outside of that, I mean, you can always take a shot on Jordan Clarkson in spots like this. Sexton Collins are viable as like last fill-in pieces, but they're not priorities for me on this slate. With such a high game total, if I get exposure to these guys naturally, I'm fine with it, but I'm not going to force it. Like I said, Lauri Markkanen's the guy for me, and I'm just going to move on from there and let the DS do its thing. Pacers are complicated to talk about. It looks like Siakam's not going to play today, so at least that's one thing that we don't have to worry about as much. Tyrese Halliburton is questionable. We know how much of a big deal that is, but the difference is he would be returning from being out for a little bit because of his injury. And so if he plays, a lot of these guys like Hield and Mathurin, Nimbard, they're just a lot less viable than if he ends up playing. So Halliburton is going to matter a lot for me on this slate. Mostly, again, this game total is just so high. I'm going to need exposure to some of these Pacers, but who knows who's going to play. Nesmith is also questionable. Mathurin is also questionable. And Obi Toppin is also questionable. A lot of guys who see a lot of minutes for this team are questionable. So the news is going to be extremely important today for this team. I'm curious if Obi Toppin is just mad about the trade that happened because he was seeing minutes and now he's going to go back more than likely to not seeing very many with Siakam joining the team. Disappointing for him. Anyway, I think Halliburton, if he plays, I'm going to force exposure to him. He'll be a leverage play, but it's hard for me to talk too much about this team right now. Turner has just not been great lately. Let me see if I'm missing anything with him. Yeah, those minutes have not been there. He had 17 against Utah, 25-25 here recently. I don't expect to play Turner more with Siakam joining this team, but with Siakam not playing today, it makes him a little bit more viable, but Sabonis has been good against players like Turner. So, yeah, Zolo, these are the two teams that have traded with each other. A ton of revenge narratives here. Underdog just dropped hard as questionable, so DK probably hasn't marked him yet. That makes sense. That does make sense. Isaiah Jackson, I like him a little bit. I think he's viable for sure at 4,200 Zola. I wouldn't talk you off of him, but I like him a little bit more if we get some injury news from guys like Obi Toppin. I think that would just solidify him at least seeing 20 minutes or more. But we know how volatile his minutes can be. But it's a good in-game environment for pretty much all of the Pacers. I think if Mathurin and Nesmith end up getting ruled out, I wouldn't hate having exposure to guys like Hield. If Halliburton gets ruled out, obviously TJ McConnell would be a little bit too cheap at this point. They brought his price tag down, so that would be interesting. Let's see. Any other viable pieces? I don't love Jalen Smith. but he's another guy who would be slightly more viable if Obi Toppin got ruled out. So for sure, a team and a game I want to make sure I have exposure to. Like I said, I like the Bulls, I like the Raptors, I like the Knicks, but these two, Thunder, Utah, Pacers, Kings, are the teams that I really want to prioritize today. Next up, we have the Kings. For me, Sabonis and Fox, they're the thumbnail today. Both are in a smash spot. I'm going to be over the field on both of them. Fox has been a leverage play for like the last however so many games. He's going to be a leverage play for me once again. I'll be significantly over the field on Fox. Sabonis, ideally, I'll be over the field on, but I'll at least be around field weight. Great spot for both of them. Great game environment. Not much more else I can say about that. Rodney, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Monk is someone I'm not going to prioritize, but he's viable, and I expect him to show up a good bit naturally, so I shouldn't have to force him in. Keegan Murray's okay, especially if you, again, like him and Fox usually just rotate having strong games, so if you like Murray, then you probably don't like Fox. But I like Fox, so I don't like Murray as much. But he's an okay dart throw. Outside of that, guys like Herter, Barnes, Lyles, not overly excited about unless we got some sort of crazy news that came through. Oh, man. This last game on the slate, Memphis against the Timberwolves. Memphis have just been going through it here lately when it comes to injuries, but they did get Jaren Jackson Jr. last game. I believe they got Aldama too. And so they looked a little bit better. They were able to beat the Warriors, which isn't saying much. But from an injury news standpoint, they still are missing Bane, Laravia, Marcus Smart, Derrick Rose, Brandon Clark, John Morant, Steven Adams. They're still missing a lot of guys. Unfortunately for them, the matchup against the Timberwolves is still not one I like to pick on too much. The price tag on the Grizzlies, they're all relatively cheap. So we're getting tempted. DK is trying to get us to bite on some of these guys. I don't think I'm going to end up matching field weight on Jaren Jackson Jr. I'm okay with him showing up naturally, but I doubt I'll be able to get past 20%. Vince Williams is fine. Not excited about him. Tillman, I don't like on this slate. Luke Kennard is okay, but again, just not someone I'm looking to prioritize. Aldama, Rhodey, Zaire. Once you get in this range, that's when minutes start to get a little bit more frail, and I become just less excited about them. Let's see. Is there anyone else I'm missing? Yeah, I knew I was missing someone, BMAC. Yeah, GG Jackson. He's just been really good. He's been really good so far this season. We'll have to get him in here. Domination Station wise, which we'll have him in by the pre-lock show. He's just one of those guys who, at this point, he's been playing consistent enough for me. Even with Jackson coming back, he still had a role to play on this team. Again, he's not going to be someone that I'm like, hey, I have to force into every line. But him seeing 29 minutes off the bench is just a very viable role player. And at 4K, it's going to be hard to not have him in most of your lines tonight. I will probably cap him around 50% if I have to. Like I said, I like him, but he's still a bench player. Those minutes can still be volatile at times, so I don't want to trust in those minutes too much yet. But I'll still probably be over the field on GG. True, roadie homecoming game. Rodney said, can you believe how worthless those Bucks were last night? No, it was pathetic. It was absolutely pathetic. Giannis is that good, but I just don't get how you get your ass whooped that bad just because you're missing one star guy. When you have other studs on the team, you have Lillard, you have Chris Middleton. Like, those are decent players. Anyway, it's fine. It happens. It happens. All right. Anyway, in general, I'm not overly excited about the Grizzlies today. I just think they're a little over-owned, but I'm not going to X them out. If they show up a little bit, that's fine for me. I like the Timberwolves a lot more. Again, just like this Wizards-Knicks game, the spread is pretty wide here, but the matchup is very soft. one of these two teams are probably going to disappoint us. So that's why these guys aren't going to be core plays for me or anything like that. But I do want leverage. Anthony Edwards at 8,400 is just too cheap. In general, no matter the matchup, too cheap. But he's in a nice matchup. Need the game to stay close, probably until the third, fourth quarter would be ideal. But he's just too cheap at this point. Karl Anthony Towns, also still too cheap. I don't love the matchup against Jaren Jackson Jr., but 8K is still too cheap for him, in my opinion. I like Rudy Gobert a bit more than Cat, but I plan on being over the field on both of them. Just good spots, well priced, all of the above. Mike Conley disappointed a few people last night. He ended up falling out of our lines, but I wasn't against Mike Conley by any means. Conley's fine, but he's a little pricey for his production. So far from a vocal point or a focal point for me on this slate. So yeah, like I said, pretty interesting. I think guys like Bagley makes the slate very interesting. Yeah, Naz Reid is definitely the guy you want for if that game blows out. Good call, Zoe. Yeah, and Conley revenge game, but that's one of those situations where I don't think he's mad about leaving at this point. But still good call out. Let's see. So yeah, like I said, I think Bagley makes a lot work for us on this slate. I have my sneaky plays in Chet and Lauri Markkanen, probably and De'Aaron Fox. And I'm just gonna really trust the DS outside of that, besides the guys that I'm just gonna make sure I at least match the field on if I feel like they're a little over owned or under owned. So that's the slate for me in a nutshell. Look forward to seeing you all on the pre-lock show later today with B-Dubs. Peace out, y'all. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day.